Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am back. I am back for Dominion Mondays. Welcome to you all. Welcome to you all. This very first Monday in the month of February. And I am back for Dominion Mondays because Mondays are made for Dominion. I am excited to be here on this evening. Um, just getting back from being on travel, and that's the reason why I couldn't join you on last week. But so very excited to be here with you all on tonight. So, I must admit that this topic has been weighing on me so very, very heavily. And I, with much hesitation, wasn't even sure if I was going to bring this message. And I probably shouldn't say it that way. But sometimes you just have things that you need to release, and you're just unsure of how to release it. And so I come to you tonight with a humble heart and to talk about a subject that I'm sure many folks aren't talking about it. And it's not so much that folks aren't talking about it, but they're not talking about it from this perspective and in this way. Okay. So I'm bringing you greetings again on tonight. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be an episode you're going to want to share. So let's jump right on in. Okay, let's jump right on in. So I'm talking about wealth on tonight. And in particular, I'm talking about kingdom wealth. Kingdom wealth. And I want you to understand that there is a distinction between wealth in the kingdom and wealth from a worldly view or a worldly perspective. Okay. Wealth in the kingdom, wealth from a worldly perspective. All right. And look, I know as well as you know, there are plenty of people talking about wealth, they're talking about finances, they're talking about money and all of those types of things, right? And quite honestly, the market is saturated with this conversation and with this discussion. But what I seek to do tonight is I want to come to you from a different perspective and really starting to talk about wealth from a kingdom perspective. Okay. Now, I'll say this: there is nothing wrong with having nice things, there's nothing wrong with desiring nice things, right? But there's a balance that has to be had, if you will, and that should be made. But I don't want to get into that just yet. So I'll call to your attention over the last several weeks, call it in the month of January. I have been talking and bringing to you subjects around poverty and around riches, but we've been talking about that from a biblical perspective. And in particular, we've been talking about it from the viewpoint of the book of Proverbs. Okay. And so we've been using that wisdom that we've been able to glean from the book of Proverbs to really break down the key distinctions between poverty, between riches, and now between wealth. Okay. And so I want to go back to a statement that I made early on in those series. And if you recall, if you watched it, and if you haven't, I encourage you to go back and watch it. But remember, I said that poverty and riches, and in this case, wealth. So poverty, riches, and wealth, these three things have something in common. And I'm sure you can come up with your own list of things that they may have in common. But for me, what is striking about the three of them is that poverty, riches, and wealth, they are mindsets, they are conditions, and they are places. Okay. They are mindsets, they are conditions, and they are places. All right. And when we say places, that place is not only a geographical location or a physical location, but it is also a spiritual location as well. But I want you to think about it in this way, that poverty, riches, and wealth are levels, okay? Poverty, riches, and wealth, they're levels, okay? They are levels of maturity. They are levels of financial stewardship, levels of achievement, so on and so forth, okay? So you bring yourself out of poverty, you bring yourself into a place of riches, you can bring yourself from a place of riches into a place of wealth. So they are levels as well. I like something though that Dr. Miles Monroe spoke on, and he was talking specifically about the types of people. So, the types of people that find themselves in a place or condition or a mindset of poverty, they think about money. They think about money, right? And oftentimes that thought process can be a bit consuming. All right. And then he said that rich people, and again, this is not mine, this is from the late Dr. Miles Monroe. He said that rich people think about things. So they think about material things and things that, they can kind of show off what they have. And then he said that the wealthy tend to think about ideas. The wealthy thinks about ideas. So going back to my earlier statement, when we're talking about poverty and riches and wealth being these levels, these are levels of thought processes, right? Because the poor are thinking about money and how I'm going to get more money, and they're chasing that. The rich are thinking about their things, the things that they own, the things that they possess, how they can possess more. And then you have the wealthy that are thinking about things. And so the wealthy are the ones that tend to be those business owners, because they are using those ideas that they are thinking about and they're pondering. They're using those as a way and as a mechanism to continue to build wealth. And so the Bible tells us, and I'm building a foundation here, so hang in there with me. So the Bible tells us that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So therefore, each of these levels, poverty, riches, wealth, it is all connected to the heart, and it's connected to the pattern of what a man is thinking or what a woman is thinking in his or her mind. But the Bible also tells us that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So not only is your financial position, your financial condition, and your financial mindset connected to your inner thinking and your inner thoughts, but it will also be spoken of out of your mouth. Now, it may not come today, it may not come tomorrow, but eventually, those things that your inner man is thinking about, it will eventually come out of your mouth. And so I wanted to lay that groundwork and lay that foundation before I really get into the topic of discussion tonight, because that really wasn't my topic. But again, I wanted to lay that groundwork and that foundation for you, okay? Because I think this helps us to understand the difference and the distinctions between wealth in the kingdom versus the worldly view of wealth. So let's look at what the worldly definition is of wealth. So wealth, as defined in Webster's dictionary, it has a couple of different meanings. Okay, it means much money or much property. It means much riches. Okay, it speaks to, when we talk about wealth, it speaks to a large amount or having something in abundance. It speaks to valuable products or contents or so on and so forth. And then wealth is also defined as everything having value in money or everything having value in currency, because we know that there's, a number of different currencies that are out here, especially in the digital age that we're in. So when you think about wealth from a worldly view, wealth is connected to material things, it is connected to assets, and it is connected to money or some form of currency. All right. Now, here's the difference with wealth in the kingdom. Okay. And I'm going to continue to dig into wealth in the kingdom over the next couple of weeks, Lord willing, if that's what He has me to talk to you about. But wealth in the kingdom is connected to purpose, it is connected to stewardship, it is connected to wisdom, it's connected to power, it's connected to covenant promise, health, prosperity of soul, and in faith. All right. Now, there's some that may say, hey, worldly wealth may be connected to some of these as well. And I don't disagree with you in that. But the worldly view of wealth is definitely different from the kingdom view of wealth. I want you guys to hang in there with me, okay? So it is the confluence of all of these things from a kingdom aspect of wealth, purpose, stewardship, wisdom, power, covenant promise, health, prosperity of soul, and faith. It is the confluence of all of those things and of all of these principles. You can even say laws, if you will, that gives wealth, right? It gives what we have and what we have earned and what we have stewarded. It gives what we have and what we have managed. It gives that true value in the kingdom, okay? So really, the beginning of our wealth, right? Just as the beginning of wisdom, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. The beginning of wealth, it rests and it is predicated upon our fear, our reverence, our awe, our worship, our obedience, and our relationship with the sovereign God. And I hope I didn't lose y'all in that. But I just want to kind of hone in on the difference between worldly wealth and kingdom wealth. Okay. Now, from a worldly perspective, that definition of wealth is lacking in one key area that it is also apparent in when you look at the wealthy in the Bible. Okay. That one key element, which is linked to or could be a link between multiplication and fruitfulness, is the family. It is the family. The family unit, i.e., people. God has always used man. He has he loves man in such a way. He values man in such a way that we, and in particular, the family unit, is the structure, it is the conduit, it is the institution by which we reveal and we show the covenant wealth that God has entrusted with us and to us. Okay. So I want to illustrate this point. So the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, He utilized Jacob and his wives to birth not just a family, but moreover, that family became a nation, and then that nation eventually walked into or entered into the promised land. So, what am I saying here? I am saying this: the family, as it pertains to kingdom wealth, the family unit, the family structure yields not only wealthy people, but it yields wealthy nations. And God brings these wealthy people and these wealthy nations into a wealthy place. Okay. To further illustrate this point, I want to use Adam in the Bible to really try to drive this point and this illustration home for you on tonight. So Adam, the first man, right? He was commissioned, he was sanctioned by God and placed in the Garden of Eden. Okay? In God placing Adam there, God placed him in his wealthy place. All right? What I want you to understand is Eden was not just wealthy, but the word Eden is synonymous with the word pleasure. So your wealthy place is not just a place that is abundant in resources, so on and so forth, but your Eden or your wealthy place is also a place where it is to be pleasurable for you. Okay? But nevertheless, in Eden now, Adam has access to a number of different resources, right? And we see these resources as illustrated at the call it at the heads, if you will, of the rivers that streamed and ran through the Garden of Eden. Okay. So the first river, and there's actually 5 rivers, there's one that is not named. I like to think that that unnamed river is the Holy Spirit, but that's just me. I don't have Bible for that, so don't shoot me for that one. But nevertheless, going back to the rivers, those rivers illustrate the wealthy place, and they really give a description of the wealthy place, which is Eden, that Adam was placed in. So that first river that we see, and this is going to Genesis chapter 2, that first river is Pison, Pison. That name or that river means increase, i.e., wealth. Okay. But what is attached to this river or what could be found at the end of this river is very, very interesting, because at the end of the river Pison is gold, precious metals. It is connected to land. It is connected to resin. Okay. That is a byproduct of oil, if you will, which is a natural resource. And it is connected to precious stones, which is, they called it out as onyx stones. Okay. So that first river is connected to a number of different things, and Adam is placed there in the Garden of Eden and has access to all of those things. It doesn't stop there though, because that river, and again, if you don't dig into this, you will miss it. That same river, Pison, it encompasses a land, Havilah. That land, that land means circular. So another aspect of the wealth that Adam was entrusted with and entrusted to manage is a circular economy, meaning that our wealth should be continuous, meaning that our wealth should last for generations. Okay. Now, the other rivers, and I'll go through them quickly. The second river was the river Gihon, and that means bursting forth. The third river was Hiddekel, and that means rapid. And then that last river was the river Euphrates, which means fruitfulness. All of those were the descriptors of the wealthy place in which Adam had been placed. But then God says, and he establishes at this moment, he recognizes it is not good for Adam to be alone. So in that wealthy place, which is the Garden of Eden, that the first man was placed in to manage, in that wealthy place, God then establishes the marriage or the marriage covenant, however you want to look at it. But really, God sanctioned and commissioned and placed that first family there in the Garden of Eden. Okay. And so that marriage is representative of the family, representative of the covenant blessings that God was seeking to bestow upon Adam and Eve. But it was a testament to how important the family structure is to kingdom wealth. Okay. So in the garden, we see Adam was given many hats. I'll go through them quickly. He was a manager of the garden, meaning that he managed the garden and the resources therein. He became a husband right there in the Garden of Eden. Again, indicative of how important important and how critical the family structure and unit is to kingdom wealth. He became in the Garden of Eden a co-creator with God right there in his wealthy place, as God brought the animals to Adam so that Adam could name those animals in the garden. And in naming those animals in the garden, he gave those animals function and functionality. So there in the garden, Adam is now co-creating with God, in creation, and really in the proliferation of creation. And then lastly, Adam actually was walking in the freedom and the liberty there, right there in the garden, as he and Eve could walk before God naked. Okay, so think it not strange that people want to connect financial resources with financial freedom, because in the Garden of Eden is the first place where we see the evidence of financial freedom. Okay. And so through this first family, which is Adam and Eve now in this garden, God afforded Adam and Eve wealth in many forms. How many forms did they come in? The form of land, okay, the form of access to convertible and unlimited resources, through power and authority and the privilege to manage. There in the garden, he established the covenant marriage and the family. There in the garden, he established Adam as co-creator with him. And then lastly, in the Garden of Eden, Adam enjoyed the freedom and the liberty that only God could give him. All of these things represented the wealth that God bestowed on the family. But it doesn't stop there, because Noah also represents a certain aspect of wealth in the family as well. And Noah is tied to the ark, right? And in Noah being tied to the ark, it speaks to the preservation of the family structure, but also speaks to the preservation of the kingdom wealth. Okay. Then think about Adam, or not Adam, but Abraham and Sarah, and what they represented, because they represented the family structure of promise, the family structure of promise. And in that, I'm sorry, I keep saying Adam, but Abraham and Sarah represented the promises. Really, remember, I was talking about wealth is connected to the covenant promises. And so Abraham and Sarah represent that through the family structure. And then lastly, going back to Jacob and the family that he had, right? And it being his 12 sons who now make up the tribe of Israel, and how Jacob and his family left one land, then settled in Goshen. And there in Goshen, they multiplied and they grew into what we know as the nation of Israel. So what am I saying in all of this? And I know I gave y'all a lot of information. What am I saying here? I am saying that the family structure, the nuclear family, the family that is husband and wife and children, the family that is even extends beyond that. So the husband, the wife, the children, the brothers, the sisters, the cousins, all of that. That family structure is the primary conduit through which God established his wealth in the earth, going all the way back to Adam and bringing it all the way forward back to where we are today. The family unit, God used that family unit. He took that family and he placed them in a wealthy place. And even if they weren't wealthy when they got there, by golly, by the time they left with wealth. Same thing with Abraham. He had to leave his family in one place. God established him in another. And then as he migrated throughout, he migrated throughout with wealth in hand. So look, I'm going to tell you this. I believe that because the family unit is the conduit through which God brings wealth and really, how do I say it? God manifests his wealth in the earth. I believe that that is one of the reasons why that the family unit itself is under attack. I know a lot of times we think about, this agenda over here. I'm gonna call it the alphabet agenda, and even the things that we see in terms of the police violence that has been inflicted on certain citizens that look like me. All of that is tied to the fact that if the enemy can take and rob the seed, if he can destroy the seed, he knows absolutely he can destroy the wealth that is intended and that God intended to bring forth through the family structure. It started with Adam. It started with Adam. Eve came in, and then it migrated through to other folks. But the family structure, I hope I am getting this message through. It is the family structure that is the conduit through which God brings forth his blessings. Now, I will say this. I am not in any way trying to come after the singles out there, because I respect y'all. I was once single, and I know how it is to be single. But even in this, understand that he desires to connect you with your partner so that you can establish and bring forth a vision and bring forth wealth in the earth. I'm going to say that again. Even if you are single, it is God's intent that he bring you and partner you with your partner so that he can establish vision and bring forth wealth in the earth. So get yourself prepared. Get yourself prepared. That is what singles need to be preparing themselves for. It is not God's intent for man to be alone. He told Adam that in the very beginning. It is not his intent for us to be alone. But what you can do in the meantime, even if you are single, get yourself an accountability partner and you both work together. You three, you four, you work together as a small family unit and you begin to build that community and prepare yourself to walk into a covenant marriage relationship. I don't know why I started talking about that, but I hope that blessed y'all. Let me give you some other things on why I think there is an attack on marriage. And I see you guys have responded, and I thank you for your commentary. The other reasons why there has been such an attack on the marriage is that there is an attack on men. This spirit of feminism, this spirit that wants to bark at men and say that, oh, toxic masculinity and all of this other stuff. I'm going to tell you, in a lot of instances, it is nonsense, and it is just another way, masked in masked and packaged in such a way to come after men, and again in an attempt to destroy the seed. But we come against that in the name of Jesus. I have young sons, and there is nothing toxic about their masculinity. I have a brother, I have a father, I have a husband. It is nothing toxic about any of their masculinity. But I fully understand that the agenda that is out there and that is being propagated is an attack against them, but it is also an attack against the family structure, because the enemy knows that God uses the family to bring about wealth in the earth. Let me go here as well. And I don't want anybody to be offended by this commentary here. There is also a celebration of the matriarchy, but there is a lack of celebration of the patriarchy. So what do I mean by that? Every Mother's Day, all the mothers are celebrated, and when it comes to Father's Day, the fathers are not celebrated. We have to change that. We have to get back to celebrating the fathers in the home. Okay. And I know what I'm saying is a little bit tough to hear, especially for um, especially for single moms, especially for moms that may be co-parenting with someone that they are no longer with. But we have to leave room and opportunity for the fathers to step in and step up. I personally dealt with this myself with my daughter, that I had outside of my marriage. I had to allow that open door for her father to come in if and when he was ready. Fortunate enough for her, she had my husband who stepped up. She had my father, my brothers who all stepped up and stepped in, because I recognized that I could not fulfill a role for her as a mother and a father. I am a mother to her. I am not a father. And I know there's been many times that people have come across and said, I'm the mother and the father. That is not possible. Clearly from the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, I believe it's the second chapter of Proverbs, it clearly outlines that the father is for correction. The father brings structure, the father brings order, the father brings correction in the home. The mother is the one who brings instruction and teaching. She is the teacher. And when the kids get out of line, the father steps up and he brings the order and the correction back into balance. There's law and there's order in the home, right? And I cannot, as mother, be both law and order. Neither can the father be both law and order. So we've got to reestablish and reconcile some of these roles so that God can now establish his covenant with the families. Let me also say this. The church has to get back to, and I thank you for the churches that already respect the family structure and understand that the family structure must be kept intact, but the church has to get back to a position where it puts the family and the family structure back at the forefront. We have to get back there. The Bible tells us that we have the ministry of reconciliation. We need to reconcile the family structure back to the forefront of the church. Okay? So let me say this, and I think I'm going to bring this to a close. I know, and I want to say that I offer up my condolences to Tyree Nichols and Tyree Nichols' family. I did not watch the video because I did not want to watch the video, because quite frankly, I have grown tired of seeing our men having those types of that type of violence, that level of violence inflicted on them. And I have to admit that I have a certain level of holy indignation because I am tired of seeing what I am seeing on the news. And it seems like every so often, right, this thing keeps popping up. Every so often we see, last it was George Floyd, and maybe there was somebody in between George Floyd and Tyree Nichols. Enough is enough is enough is enough. And we have to reclaim our family structure. We have to get back to a place where our young men respect authority. And I'm not in any way saying that Tyree Nichols did not respect authority, but there is certain order that needs to be reestablished in our homes and in our communities and in our churches. And no money in the world is ever going to make up for any of that. But ultimately, when we see the violence that was inflicted upon Tyree Nichols, that in and of itself is a destruction of wealth. It not only destroys the family, it not only destroys um, Tyree Nichols' future, it also destroys the future of the cops that inflicted the violence. So now we have several young Black men that are either dead, as in the case of Tyree Nichols, or now caught up in a prison system that ultimately has been designed to rob this community of wealth. And it doesn't stop there, because guess who foots the bill for any civil lawsuit or what have you that the Nichols family will then sue the city of Memphis for? The taxpayer. And so now it will then reach back into the people that are in the Memphis city. It reaches back into their pockets, and tax dollars that probably should go to education or should go to things of value now is being redistributed in such a way that really doesn't bring the value that it needs to have. And so I go back to my earlier point that Kingdom wealth starts with the family. There is a huge attack on the family structure. And the reason why the attack is there, because the enemy wants to destroy the family. And in destroying the family, he destroys the wealth that God intends for us to have. I pray that this has been a blessing to you on tonight. I am coming back with dominion over finances. I dropped a note in the description for this video on tonight. There's some other things that I can't get into in this session, but I'm hoping that I can begin to get into and break down. We have to move with a sense of urgency. There are so many agendas that are brewing, not just what I just spoke of on Tyree Nichols, but there's an agenda that is brewing in this earth, and we have to be prepared for that. And I will even suffice to say, if we don't get back to family, and if we don't get back to community, we are not going to survive this thing. We're not going to survive this thing. And God didn't intend for us to walk this thing alone. Going back to my earlier point, I'm bringing dominion over finances back starting March 4th. March 4th of 2023 at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be teaching a class on budgeting. This is not going to be your everyday, I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet and I'm going to punch in some numbers. No, we are going to, and I'm staying in the book of Proverbs because there's a lot of wisdom. There's a wealth of wisdom there in the book of Proverbs. I want to bring that forth to you. So please register for the class. I dropped the link in the video. I want you to come with me. Proverbs tells us to look to the ant. There's a lot that we can learn from that ant as it pertains to the discipline of budgeting. Budgeting is not just punching a spreadsheet, but it's about a discipline. And this is a time and season where the men and women of God, we have to walk in wisdom, but we got to walk with some discipline as well. And so I invite you to sign up for the class. It is completely free. I'm warming you up because after that, I'm coming back with some group coaching. Folks need some group financial coaching because we all have dreams and aspirations and things that God wants us to achieve. And I want to help you do that. So sign up for the budgeting class. It is The Secret Life of Ants, the discipline of budgeting. Sign up for that. Meet me March 4th, Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. And then from there, I'm telling you, we are going to places that we never thought possible. And I want to be there with you guys. And I want you guys to be there with me as well, because we're going together as a community, as a family, as the church, and as the remnant. All right. So God bless you. I hope this has been a blessing for you tonight. Like I always say, It's Dominion Mondays because Mondays are made for dominion. So I will see you guys on next Monday. Lord willing, I may drop a note on Saturday about some of these other agendas that are going on that's going to impact our lives here potentially over the next few years. So good night, and I'll see you again very soon. Thank you, and God bless.